So that Essential Oils back in the day.
Yeah.
He was the CEO. Well, the founder was a pretty crazy individual and was always going down to South America and finding these like random roots and seeds and things and all this stuff. And he would have to smuggle them back all the time. And so my buddy, who was the CEO, was involved in a couple like having to get him out of prison things.
Oh, whoa.
Because he got caught a couple times.
Smuggling foreign plants.
Smuggling plants, man.
That had been the draw of the job for that guy.
I don't think that was the draw of the job.
No?
It was
They
pretty frustrating
take that stuff
for him.
pretty seriously too. Like
Very
if you ever try
serious.
to bring a banana from
Yeah.
Mexico in, you'll know.
So he was like,
My wife is notorious for like having stuff in her purse that she shouldn't have. So yeah, every time she goes somewhere, somebody gets in trouble, and they're like, "What are you doing with these seashells?" And I'm like, "Brian, you can't take that stuff." You know? But she
So
always
as you're
does.
approaching the border, you're
Dude.
feeling nervous?
This is a terrible story. She went to, I don't remember, she was somewhere down south, and she brought back a shell, and it was like sitting on her counter, and a crab, I kid you not, walked out.
Came out?
Yeah,
Oh, boy.
and we had it in our house for like a couple years. This thing lived in a jar.
No way.
Yeah, in a little can. Yeah.
Did you guys feed it?
Oh yeah, she took care of it,
Your
gave it
kids-
lettuce. No,
your
my
kids
wife's
like
a
that?
nurse, so she, anything nurturing, she's all about. But,
No way.
yeah, my kids loved it. Yeah.
that's awesome.
Oh, random.
All the way in the airplane, man.
Yeah, there's some wild stories about that Young Living CEO. If you guys ever want to Google that,
It's worth a
it's
read.
pretty wild. Yeah,
It's worth a Google.
Have to get him, huh?
We'll. I don't know if we'll ever. I don't know if we'll
Kurt, you
ever
got any
like
stories like
talk
that?
about it, but
Smuggling stuff?
No.
Not a smuggler?
No.
Kurt's not a smuggler.
No, but my
Kurt's-
wife's lost 3 pocket knives coming through security in the last
Oh.
3 years.
yeah,
So-
that'll
Brady, do you have
She
any
tries to
stories about that lately? Been traveling? Any issues?
I've been trying to. Oh gosh, yeah, I do actually. You want to get into that?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, so I slightly unretired from bow hunting this winter. I went
That's
back
what I
to
heard.
Minnesota and tried to kill a whitetail with my bow. So here I am. I've flown a million times with a bow, a million times with a rifle. I know everything about TSA, how to navigate the system. Get in there, I'm like, I have a bow I want to check, but I want to check it as a firearm. Like, is it a bow or is it a firearm? I'm like, well, it's a bow. The lady's like, I don't know what to do with this. She asked another lady, they're like, yeah, since it's a bow, it does not need any scanning at all. It does not need any special scanning. She's like, do you really want to check this as a firearm then? I'm
You
like,
haven't even heard this, have you?
so I'm like, well,
This is
no,
new
I
to
guess
me.
not. And
get close to
yeah, they throw it in the thing, and I go upstairs all the way through security, sitting there literally at my gate. I get a phone call from my dad. I'm like, what are you doing up so early? I had to be at the airport like 3 a.m. And my dad's like, TSA has been trying to reach you. I'm like, I have no missed phone calls, and they can't get a hold of you. You need to go and hurry and get all the way back downstairs. They said there's an issue with your bow. I'm like, what? Should be no issue with my bow. It's a bow. There's no ammo, no firearms in there. So I'm like, okay. So I call a TSA agent. I'm like, do I have to go all the way down there right now? And they're like, yeah. Like, am I going to get special clearance to come back up through here because I'm going to miss my flight if I have to leave the area and go all the way back down to baggage claim or baggage check-in area? Get all the way down there, and another lady comes out, like a bunch of people. They're like, Brady, you have an illegal item in your bow case. Do you want to talk about that? And I'm like, there's nothing in there that's illegal. You guys can scan it. There's nothing in there. They're like, well, we have a pair of brass knuckles in your bow case. And I'm like, brass knuckles? Like archery releases? And I had explained to them then what the archery releases were, and I'm just like, what are the odds?
This happened to me one time. So I told Brady
Yeah.
because my release is brass. It's a
Yeah.
hinge, right?
Yeah.
And I went through. I always keep it with me in my check bag.
Yeah.
And I went through. They pulled me aside. They're like, "Hey, you brass knuckles," and I was like, "Not brass
interesting.
knuckles." I'm
I
like,
fly
just-
with a hinge brass release all the time.
Yeah,
had a
never?
problem. Yeah. No.
Never had this happen before. And I'm like, and I had to, and explain it to him, like, okay, sorry, you're actually really good to go. But I'm like, can I get a fucking clearance here to go back upstairs? No. I had to go all the way back through.
There we go.
I was running. I always get to the airport
First
super
5
early. I
minutes.
There we
hate being
go.
rushed in life and anything. And I'm just running through it. I'm like, I think I was calling Trail. Like, Trail, you got to hear about this. As I'm
Yeah.
running through the airport, I literally get to the gate. They're announcing my name, like, hey, is there a Brady Miller here? This is the last call for flight to Minneapolis. I'm like, fuck. And right when I get there, like,
Let's
I'm
go.
Brady. Like, oh, yeah, we expected you. You're the guy who's running. And then right when I got in, I closed the gate. And then I have to be the asshole who's walking through the plane. They're trying to leave early.
Yeah.
And cause
And
it
you
was,
held them up.
really Christmas Eve. And so then I'm like, the asshole who made the plane not leave early
Just
But you
because
gotta-
had
because my brass knuckles.
You live in Vegas, man. You're trying to protect yourself.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. When that happened to me, I had to explain to the guy, give him a whole tutorial how the whole hinge works, the moon, the everything. And I was like, please show me how I can use this as brass knuckles.
Yeah, because I had two of them, and they do look like,
Yeah, they
you know,
do look
brass
suspect.
knuckles.
I mean,
So I don't know what the way to do it is. Do I go forward? Do I carry my carry-on then? Would that
That's
be
what I
worse?
did.
I carried mine on my carry-on.
What
I
do
had
you
no
do?
issues.
Just in my carry-on,
Yeah.
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 I was just afraid like they're gonna lose it, right? Like worst
Yeah.
case scenario, you shoot somebody else's bow, but maybe you can still shoot your release. But
And what are
I
the-
didn't know brass knuckles; those are illegal.
I didn't think so either.
I didn't know
but-
that.
They're like wildly illegal.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, I got
Gonna
a
have
pair
to
if you
sell
guys need
yours.
some.
Okay. Guess I'm gonna be putting some brass knuckles on eBay when I go.
I have to cross that one off the new product line. for
Yeah,
Stone Glacier.
yeah, Stone Glacier brass knuckles
Brass
off the
knuckles.
list, I guess.
Yeah, with the bow too, it's always so easy.
It's the
When
easiest
I
thing
went to
ever.
Canada, I checked mine in as sporting goods.
Yeah.
Like it was nothing.
But that's
Just
why I
check it
almost
in and
wanted to
went.
check in as a firearm. Because I was
Yeah,
trying to tell
'cause
the lady, because I was
more
like,
protection,
more
yeah.
security. I'm like, if you want to go scan it, go for it. And like, she's like, you don't need it. I'm like, all right. So on the way back, I was like, all right, I dealt with this before. Like, you guys should scan this. And they're like, really? I'm like, I forced them to scan it. And I was like, there is things
Brass
in there.
knuckles in
There are brass
They're
knuckles.
not brass knuckles. And they're
There
like,
are. Just be aware.
yeah, and it was super smooth coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Vegas, I've never had issues in Vegas.
You never know what you're going to run into at TSA.
No.
So subjective to each individual.
The
It's
brass
like,
knuckles,
Yeah.
the archer release is like the cousin of the brass knuckle.
Brady was fired up about that.
He was.
He wasn't that
Dropped
fired up.
the F-bomb quick.
yeah.
Yeah, wow.
When he
Yeah.
called me, he was not that fired up.
Because I was like, I don't like being rushed. And to put me in a situation where I'm going to miss
How
a
early
flight,
were you?
Christmas Eve, going to 3 my mom, I mean, my mom
That's
would
a
not be
big deal.
happy if I'm going to miss Christmas.
I know.
But it's a big deal.
How early were you?
Literally probably 3 hours early from my flight.
Brady likes to be early.
I do too. I get it. I hate being rushed. I'd rather just hang out in the airport, dick around. I hate being rushed.
I like to people watch too. I just
Freak.
get a cup of coffee,
You
people
freak.
watch,
You
read a book.
Well, thanks for coming today. We got special guests in the house.
Yep.
Yeah.
We got Kurt and founder of Stone Glacier, right? Is that your official title?
No, I think it's more along the lines of designer. but
Designer?
That might
Gotcha.
fall into it too.
Founder and designer.
Founder, yeah.
designer.
That's what we put on his business
And
card.
Lyle. Do you have business? Do you have business cards? Do you have like a nameplate on your office?
No.
No, we're not that fancy. No.
Lyle, what's your title right now? Official?
Marketing director.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good. We appreciate you guys stopping by. You're here for SHOT Show, right?
We are, yeah.
You guys
Yep.
made time. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Popping
you bet.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to hit promo. Look, I'm only
Wow.
7 minutes in. Last time, usually I'm really bad about it. I'm supposed to be
Getting
in
the-
charge of like making sure we.
Oh,
we
there's
hit
a schedule,
Yeah,
right.
we hit the schedule.
Yep.
So we're supposed to hit promo within the first 5 minutes. We're not doing too bad if we're only 7 in, right?
It's a lot better than we've been doing.
Yeah, last time we caught it at the very tail end.
Like 90 minutes.
And I think
90
we
minutes.
did.
That's how they like it, right on the
Yeah,
end.
exactly.
Yeah, I
That's
like to
when everybody's
mix it
still
up.
listening. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I think a few episodes ago I missed it completely. Brady told me.
Perfect.
Sorry about that.
Hey, we're here for the people.
That's it. But you can use the promo code podcast if you want to sign up for a goHUNT Insider account. Right now we're in research season. We're going to get into that and probably pick your brain a little bit about what you guys are applying for. I'm just curious as to how people are applying and if you're applying and how. But it's a great time to sign up, do your research. You can sign up for an insider account, use the promo code podcast. We're going to give you 50 points back into the goHUNT Gear Shop. And I was talking to Katie earlier today. She said that through the end of the month, insiders are going to get 2 times points on
you
your
go.
purchases. 1 point's $1. Super simple. Also, Insider in the app, you can do your research now within your app on your phone. You can just click on the icon and you can do all your filtering and do your research. For people like Brady who are just constantly on their phone.
It's been really hard
Am I
in
on
my
my,
marriage.
always on my phone? is that something that
I am
work
always
on?
on my phone, and this has just made it even worse. My wife's not happy.
Yeah.
Constant filtering.
Yeah.
I don't know if you are or not, but I like to give you some shit. So I figured, why not?
You have to.
Right.
Yeah. You're single though, man. You're good.
That's
I
right.
have a lot of time on my hands.
You get a wife and a couple kids, the phone really becomes a thing.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
It's really frustrating.
So use the promo code podcast. Sign up for an account. It's a great time of year to do some research. So with that, you're here for SHOT? You guys have a booth?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we have a booth over at SHOT. We just had Cheap Show. That was a great show. But yeah, now we come down, we do SHOT Show. We do 5 shows a year. 4 of them are consumer shows, and then this one's a trade show. Not open to the public on SHOT Show, but yeah, more of an industry show.
So you guys are here for like who you guys? What's your retailer? Your B2B side?
Your category?
Yeah, like who are you guys here for?
Yeah, honestly, SHOT Show used to be a lot about signing orders and stuff with wholesale, and it's not really that anymore. It's more media and communication, things like that. Honestly, we come, what a lot of people don't know about Stone Glacier is we do a lot of military business as well. So we're here more for the military contacts and the military meetings. We'll still have some meetings with a few buyers, et cetera, that are walking the floor, but most of the orders and kind of the stuff that used to happen at SHOT Show, that doesn't happen here anymore. It's all more media placement and stuff like that.
Nice.
You say you did 5 shows? You do 5 shows?
We do 5 shows, yeah.
Do you do all of them?
No, we used to.
That's a lot.
That was a hard no from Kurt.
Yeah. No,
They're all piled up.
Kurt and I were on this like sheep show, SHOT Show, which those shows are back to back. So we do this like 2-week long kind of bender, if you will, of just stuff we don't normally do, because we're pretty simple family men. But so we do these, and then Dallas Safari, SCI. What's the other one? Oh, Western Hunter.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then sheep show, SHOT Show.
Do you try to mix them up every year, like on who goes to what? So
We do mix them up. Like, so we'll send guys from the team. Like, everybody goes. I mean, it's kind of a requirement of Stone Glacier. Like, you're going to go to at least one show. I try to go to as many of them as I can, but it's pretty hard. Like, and they're all like pretty much weekend. So if you did them all, you'd be out of the office probably a little too much. But
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, it's a lot.
It's a strain on company, strain on the family, strain on everything.
It is.
The way the
it's a
show
lot.
schedule works in the hunting industry, it is a lot in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, and I understand why they do them this time of year, right? It's availability and things, but man, it's always the weather's always like dicey, right? Like there's a lot of people that don't make it to the show, or if you're driving to a show, I know that can be difficult. This is our second year of. We use a third party company that helps us with all of our logistics of getting the booth there and stuff.
McKinsey?
But, yeah, McKinsey.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, but before that, we we literally were driving everywhere in our excursion that would break down in our trailer.
we did that.
We did that. Yeah,
Dude,
until we found McKinsey.
Yeah, we had a truck. I remember that. Gave us some issues.
Yeah, we had a truck that broke down. We pulling a 24-foot enclosed trailer, the whole deal, and it break down and issues.
Yeah,
We always wrote Brandon into doing that somehow.
Brandon was the guy.
was always the brief
Brandon
guy.
was the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would have like a solid month and a half there where he was just pulling his hair out continually.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's trade shows are fun. Like I miss the traveling a little bit because it's just such a fun like camaraderie thing. Like get a bunch of guys together and do a road trip. But now that we don't do that, it's pretty awesome. Show up, show up, merchandise your booth, and then
It's probably more awesome you've moved into a different stage in your life, maybe, huh? You
Yeah,
got kids.
Yeah, we're in that stage of like our old shop. I don't know if you guys were ever there, but it was pretty small.
Yeah.
And that I call that like the frat house, And then we built a new building, and now it's like we're married with there's throw pillows and things. It's like we're in like a little nicer space. So, and then now we're in like a little bit better space where you're like, oh, like now we can go on vacation, and that's like what the trade shows are, right? So, yeah, somebody else kind of plans it for you, and you just kind of show up and work it. But there's still a lot of logistics, obviously, that go into it from our end.
Sure.
But yeah, it is nice.
What show's your favorite?
I mean, we
You've
really
been to
like
all of them?
Sheep Show. Like
Yeah.
that one's kind of the OG one that I think Stone Glacier went to first, a little bit before my time. I like that one. They're all special for different reasons. But
It's like you're talking
that
about
one's
your
pretty
kids.
cool. And then, right, I love them all for
Which
different
one's your favorite? I love you all for different reasons.
Yeah, SHOT Show's fun because it's a little bit like on a bigger scale, right? The booths are bigger, like it's a little bit more business focused, so that's kind of unique.
Yeah.
Western Hunter is always a blast. Like we like going to Western Hunter. Somebody always wins something that we know at Western Hunter, which is cool.
We feel the same way. Somebody's always walking away with something that we know of.
Never me.
Never us individually, but we always seem to know someone.
Yeah. We've had some people win.
Brandon.
Stoner won a tag. Brandon won a tag. We've had
Yeah,
some people
Stoner
pull
won
tags.
book cliffs.
Yeah, that's yeah. He's
Like one of my
both of them are good.
It's one of
tags.
my hunts I really would love to chase.
It's just a lesson in frustration for me every year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pull it up. I get all excited. Nothing.
I don't gamble until hunting shows when I can put raffle tickets in. Spending
That's
some
your-
cash.
that's
What
your
if you
gambling.
really gambled? Then you could apply for more. So you could double your money. Then take that and put it into apps.
You did
Great
say I'm
thing.
on my phone all the time, so I could bet all the
Hey,
time on my
here
phone.
we go. We're on something here.
Everybody makes money gambling, right?
Yeah, dude, for sure.
No one ever loses money.
No, dude,
Never.
Vegas.
Yeah.
All these places lose money.
Vegas is in the hole. They
Yep.
just don't look like it's all the crab and stuff they're selling. That's
Exactly. That's where they make the
floating
money.
up.
It's on
Yep.
the food.
It's food.
Hotel rooms and
Yeah,
food,
exactly.
for sure.
Entertainment.
We appreciate having Kurt in. We've never had you on a podcast before. How many podcasts have you done? I listened to probably 2 or 3 on my way, to and from traveling this weekend.
Boy, I don't know. Not a lot.
Do you try to steer clear of them?
Maybe not intentionally, but I won't throw my name in the hat if not asked.
Yeah. Like if somebody calls the main office and they say somebody want to do a podcast, you're not raising your hand
Yeah,
for it.
like I gotta go use the bathroom.
Yeah.
I'll be back.
I get that.
Yeah.
I guess I wanted to talk to Kurt primarily because I wanted to just pick your brain about design, because I think you're kind of the brain behind Stone Glacier. You started the packs, right? And I wanted to basically kind of run through just like a little bit of your background and like what is uniquely interesting about you, and why you kind of took this path with building packs and hunting. So maybe give us a quick rundown on your background.
Yeah, born and raised in Montana.
What part of Montana?
Western Montana, outside of Missoula.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just west of Missoula. And then went to college in Montana. Went to U of M for a little bit, graduated from MSU, and then moved to Alaska. So I got my degree in teaching, and there were a lot of opportunities in Alaska at that time, and I just really wanted to go up there to hunt and fish. That
Like
just seemed
L
like the
Ed,
next
secondary.
ed.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's all high school. Well,
What-
junior high and high school.
What did you want to teach?
My degree is in technology education and biology.
Okay.
So, but I ended up going to a small school up there in Homer, Alaska, and it was, as a new teacher, it was just a catch-all. I taught a little bit of everything, and which was pretty interesting. And so I did that for 6 years, and then ended up working up on the North Slope in the oil fields, and did that for another 18. And in and amongst all that's when Stone Glacier started kicking off.
You're married now with kids, right?
Yeah.
Were you married when you moved to Alaska?
No, I wasn't. I moved up there when I was 23, I guess. Yeah, and then
Hunting was like the main driver of why you wanted to go there.
hunting was definitely it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the number one reason I moved up
Montana had a ton of opportunity and still does, but
Yeah.
you still wanted to just something more.
It just, yeah, after growing up here at 20 some years old, it's not that that you got bored with it, but there was always that next level.
Yeah.
There were all these other species, and I had a friend of a friend who was a teacher up there, and you see the photos and you talk stories, and man, it just sounded like you were missing out if you didn't go check it
Yeah.
out.
Would that have been in what, like early 2000s, late 90s?
Yeah, late 90s.
Late 90s.
Yeah, yep, mid to late 90s.
So you've been hunting a ton of deer and elk and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you're hearing about moose and sheep and goat.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's understandable.
Caribou. I mean, there's just
Yeah.
all of these crazy adventures that these guys are going on. That I just felt like I would have regrets if I didn't take the opportunity to go up there and try to have that. And in teaching, it's not like you're going to save your money and go on a Dall sheep hunt
Yeah,
every other year
for
or
sure.
something. So show up there and get your residency. And
How is that on your radar though? Because I mean, I don't know how old you are. Maybe 40s.
51.
You're 51.
Yeah.
Holy
Peter Pan,
shit.
man. Look at this guy.
The guy is legitimately
We got to
Peter
get into that later.
Yeah.
I got a sheep hunting friend here in Nevada, Victor Trujillo. I don't know if you
Oh,
know
yeah.
him, but he's Peter Pan as well. But I think Kurt's got him beat out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Victor T is like one of the youngest, spryest looking dudes on planet Earth. But Kurt might have beat him. Now that I know
I
you're
can't believe you're
51,
50.
that's unbelievable.
I wouldn't have thought you were 51.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
I got to figure out how you're doing that.
Sheep hunting. Yeah, that's how.
Yeah. But I'm 44. I remember, like the late 90s, same kind of thing. And I was into hunting, but like Alaska wasn't on my radar. So I'm curious as to, did you have somebody growing up that hunted sheep that had gone to Alaska? Like how was that on your radar?
I think it was mostly on my radar because I was in secondary education. So this was at a time in Alaska where they were looking for teachers. There were incentives. The salaries were the highest in the United States
Yep.
by far. I mean, there wasn't anything that touched it. They used to have a program where they called it Tier 1, if I remember right. If you taught for 20 years, you could retire. The day after you retired, you start drawing your pension. And then you have full benefits beyond that, medical. So I knew people that would go up there, and at 44, they're essentially retired or they're moving on to some other thing. So there were a lot of benefits that the state of Alaska was offering teachers to try to draw them up. I remember that when I was in school, the state of Alaska would send their representatives down to these education fairs for teachers who were trying to get jobs and just recruiting, trying to pull people in. So it was much more on all of our radar being in that, in education, that opportunity was there.
I wonder if they still do that.
Are you thinking about going?
I mean, it would have worked on me
Right.
back then. Probably if I'd have known, if I'd have been. I've told people before. Even Branson worked here, right? Branson, wasn't married, single. I think he's in his mid 20s, early 20s, and I kept telling him like, you should go to Alaska.
Yeah.
Like if you ever want to hunt these animals, like it's really your best opportunity to go is to move now. Go. I mean, work on a fishing boat, whatever you got to do. Like go to Alaska if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
So I've told people that, but I remember, me being, in the late 90s, that wasn't on my radar at all. So I was just curious.
I had 2 opportunities to go to Alaska, and one of them failed because of paperwork with the government because I wasn't certified to fly in a freaking airplane. I was almost going to swear again because I was so pissed about that.
You've been on the list forever.
been on-
sounds
you're on the
like.
list.
I'm seeing a theme here.
That's probably
Yeah.
the day that they figured out that this guy can't go.
Turns
Exactly.
out
Even though I've been flying in helicopters all the time, but since the government ended up with paperwork saying I could sit in an airplane, so I couldn't go to do fisheries research, and then another time to do some fire work, and I passed that opportunity up. My biggest regrets in life were those 2 that I didn't move to Alaska.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you're figuring it out though.
Kind of.
So how long did you teach in Alaska?
6 years.
6.
Yeah.
You like teaching?
I did. I mean, still to this day, I think it's, one of the things I'm most proud of. And honestly, later in life, I'd like to be able to get back into some sort of service into that teaching community. My grandpa was a teacher. My dad was a teacher. Just kind of has been in our family for a while. And it's really rewarding.
Like you go home at night and you feel good, like you did something.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. My wife teaches 5th grade, and for a long time she taught online and hated it, and then went back into the classroom. And I haven't heard her complain in 5 years since she went back to like teaching in the classroom. Like she really likes it. She's just in front of people and the interaction, the kids, and like see kids progress. And
Yeah,
So
I can see that for sure. But
Yeah.
the oil field brought you out though. That was the thing.
Yeah, that was it. Had an opportunity to go up and do summer work. Ended up on a piping crew up on the North Slope, and had just gone up to do summer work, and it was just a little too lucrative.
Yeah, that's what I was.
And
what I
and
was
then-
thinking.
Yeah, and then when I was teaching, I really liked football, so I was coaching football. That started early, and all of a sudden, you're up there to do this thing that is drawing you up there in hunting, and there was 0 time to do it. And even when you had a weekend, trying to get out to go do something up there in 2 or 3 days is that really limits your range.
Yeah.
So yeah, then I got into that shift work and had this 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time. Yeah, you could go do some exploring in that. So it was, that's what kept me there.
You coach football up there?
Yeah.
Did you play football?
I did.
In high school?
Yep. Yeah, my dad was a football coach too.
Okay. Quarterback?
Did, yep. And quarterback.
Built like a
safety.
quarterback.
Tall, lean.
Yeah, tall and lean,
strong.
built just like a quarterback.
You been watching the games then?
Yeah. We caught up a little bit more yesterday.
Who you
but,
pulling for?
I don't know. I've never been a Lions fan, but I kind of just feel
It's
like
hard to not be this year, though.
yeah,
I've never been a Lions fan either.
yeah.
Like even back in the days of Stafford and Megatron.
You weren't a
all
Barry
that
Sanders
stuff.
fan?
I mean, I don't know. Being in Vegas, like I was always so disconnected from the Lions, and they were always the same old Lions.
I
So
know
it was
nothing
just
about
kind of
football,
hard.
but I was a Barry Sanders fan.
But man, like
I think
now,
you can be
no.
a Barry Sanders fan and not be a Lions fan, though, right?
I saw something the other day. They said they hope if they play for the Super Bowl, like they bring him back on a 1-day contract, let him take a snap.
I don't wanna-
They should.
Wouldn't that be rad?
That'd be pretty sweet.
I don't want to
Yeah.
make you feel old, but like I don't necessarily
I
remember
already
Barry
feel
Sanders.
51 too.
I don't really remember Barry Sanders. So like,
How old are you?
I'm
Kurt does.
36.
36?
Yeah. So like I was getting into football. It was like he was coming off as
Yeah.
I was like getting into football.
Sure.
I mean, I know of him and remember him, but not like some of these other players that I watched growing up, like Adrian Peterson. Those kind of guys were more of my age, But man, this year it is like sitting on the bench. It is hard to not want the Lions to win everything.
I know.
It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
incredible to see. It shows you where I love it being, in business now and family and all this stuff is culture. Like it truly is from the top down, just bred into people. Yeah. Like you're either that guy or you're not, right? So, Motor City Madness,
Ted
and
Nugent.
Dan Campbell, MCDC, like it's incredible to watch.
Yeah.
It's so fun to watch.
My kid was showing me something the other day that somebody had taken a picture, like Fox News or CNN, right? That you've got the the guy up there doing his thing, his broadcast. And then at the bottom of it, you got the headlines rolling through, you know, and somebody screenshotted it. It was like, Usher, Post Malone, Reba McEntire perform at Super Bowl halftime. And then it had the two teams, 49ers, Ravens, Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like it's predetermined already.
Oh, interesting.
That's it's a screenshot.
It gets into the whole conspiracies of the
So what do
NFL
you-
scripted and all
Yeah.
this shit.
What
I don't
do you think-
believe.
What do you think, Lyle?
I don't
Is it?
believe it.
I don't know. I
Straight up.
watched the documentary. I think it's on Netflix about that referee in like the '90s that was
Making calls.
making bets and stuff. And and basically it sounds like you get a memo every once in a while that's like, hey, Michael Jordan doesn't get fouls called on him, things like that. So I don't know if it's fully scripted, but I think there's maybe sometimes an agenda, right, that might run down that could change
don't give
the
Brady
things. But
leverage
I would
for
like to
LeBron.
think it's not, right? Like,
I-
why would it need to be?
I love to think that it's not scripted. And the thing about the NFL is, so in the NBA, you got 5 guys on the court on one team, right?
Right.
You got 6 guys on the bench, it's 11 dudes. In football, you have 56 dressed out guys, or right? Yeah, 56 dressed out guys. How do you get everyone on the same page?
It was like 300. You look at the
Right? Or like maybe 56 is a full roster or dressed out, whatever. it is.
56 or 52.
But like,
or something,
how do you can't get that many guys on the same page, especially when they're all fighting for, playoff bonuses and Super Bowl bonuses and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't see how it'd be
It's,
possible.
I think
And-
it would be too
no
hard
way.
to keep it covered up, right? Like,
yeah, and I don't want to believe it. I like watching.
Yeah.
I like watching it. I don't want to believe it.
That's why basketball's better.
No,
No,
that's why it's
basketball's-
worse. Is because you can pay off 5
right.
guys really easy.
I was just gonna. You just gave Brady leverage for LeBron being the greatest when you talked
No.
about MJ.
Oh.
No, man, no way.
Yeah. Anyway, I took that on a side road, didn't I?
Yeah.
Real far.
I mean, it was
Sorry,
coming off a really good weekend of sports. Very good weekend.
It was.
Were you hunting up there when you like? At what point did you start hunting? Immediately when you moved up there?
So no, it's not until you're a resident. So you had
Gotcha.
to had to hit your residency. But I had friends that I taught with that would go hunting or that liked to hunt every once in a while. So I was always trying to
Learn.
come on, let's go check this out. You ever been on a goat hunt? No. I found there's a tag on the other side. You should get this tag. Let's go.
How long is Alaska residency? 6 months or a year, or what is it?
That is 12 months.
Alaska's
Now I
12
need to look
full?
at it because I mean it was
We can
it was
double
20
check.
some years
Yeah.
ago. But yeah, don't take my word for it. But it was I want to say it was 12 months, and then there was restrictions on how long you could be gone within that 12 months. So you couldn't just move up there
And then go
travel.
back. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but so we did some hunting right off the bat, and then the interesting thing about it is that it's so different from right now because there were no forums, there was no Onyx, there was, if you wanted to figure out a place to go, you had to have a paper map. You had to talk to somebody who would give you information, who either trusted you with something, and normally it's taken them years to figure out where they wanted to go. So your learning curve was extremely steep. There was no shortcuts to information. And so it took a while. It was several years before I felt like I had some spots to go, where you were seeing some animals, where you had gear dialed in. And it was before all of these. There were a few waterproof breathables out there, but there was no list to go out and buy your things or people to ask. Everybody was using different things, and a lot of those things were mountaineering based or commercial fishing based, kind of depending on where you're at, just to try to stay dry. So yeah, it was just a lot different back then.
Do you
than I
remember your
think it is.
first trip? Like, what did you go? Did you go out on your own? Did you go with a buddy?
No, I went with one of my friends, and it was a guy that I coached football with. And so on the peninsula at that time, they would have draw units for goat. And I think the draw unit, if you drew a tag, it'd go for 6 or 8 weeks or whatever it was. And then if they didn't fill their quota, they'd open it up on a 4-day window, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And you come in and register to get a goat tag. So anybody could get one at that point. But you had to be local, and you had to go down and buy the tag. And then they'd see what the quota was after that. So I said, man, we should see if we can't go across there. So one of our football coaches was a commercial fisherman, so he had his boat in the bay. So I talked to him, see if he could run us over there. He said, yeah, man, that sounds great. Talked to the other guy who could hunt, and he'd never hunted goats before. He said, man, let's try to go over there. So we put this team together. They ran us over and he actually ended up getting a goat. But I was wearing nothing but wool. And it was
Solid.
mid-October, and it was wet, and it was cold, and fortunately it was only a day hunt, because I really don't know how you could have got dried out if it wasn't a day hunt overnight. So there were a lot of those types of situations where you found out that, well, I'm far from having this figured out. I mean, take away all the hunting portion and trying to find animals and how that works, just trying to survive in those types of conditions and be safe and all those things. So, yeah.
It must be intimidating, I would think, that first trip out. I think
Yeah.
about this a lot because we talk to so many different people that are coming from the Midwest or the East, and they're coming out on an elk hunt. And I'm sure you guys do too when they're looking to buy gear. But I talk to a lot of people, and it's like this. They have this like hurdle of like intimidation, and a lot of it, I think, is just, you know, right now we live in a great age. I mean, everything's at your fingertips. You can Google it and do all your research that you want. You know, you didn't have that luxury, obviously, but like I think so much of it is just like, I tell people all the time, it's just a stupid thing, but you just got to do it.
Yeah.
Like just go put yourself out there, see what it's like. You know, you'll learn so much that first trip, even if you don't get one. But
Yeah.
it sounds like you guys are fortunate enough to tag out on one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really lucky, actually. You know, sometimes that's just the way it goes.
Absolutely.
We had zero experience.
Yeah.
What was the gear back then? Like, what was it? What was
Yep.
the known thing?
Do you have a backpack?
So, yeah, I did. I had a backpack, and now I'm trying to think of. There was Jim Shockey was involved in it. There was this composite frame, and I'm trying to think of who made it. And it was wasn't far from some of the designs that we have right now, where you have this composite frame, the shoulder straps were adjustable on it, the hip belt, and it would take a series of different bags. And then you could buy the Cabela's bags. You know, the old Cabela's bags that would go on, say, a Kelty frame or one of the old tube frames. One of those would match up to it, and so you could interchange bags. But as soon as it got cold, if it got cold and you had a heavy load on it, you'd snap the frame. So you had to be very careful about that. So that's what I had.
That's what you're looking for in your
That's it.
backpack.
Yeah.
Especially in Alaska.
Yeah,
'Cause
right.
It doesn't get
Yeah.
cold.
No,
Nothing.
nothing. No, you'll be fine.
Yeah, but I also remember one of the only waterproof breathables at that time was Cabela's made this stuff. And I don't know why I still remember what it's called, but it's called MT050, I think. And it was a waterproof, 3-layer waterproof breathable, but it had a fleece face on it.
Yeah.
So as soon as it got wet, like you were wet for the day,
Yeah.
but it'd keep you fairly dry to the inside. So those were the only specific ones beyond that I remember.
Do you have boots? You remember? Like what kind of boots?
Yeah, which is crazy to even think about. Have you guys heard of Hoffman?
Oh yeah.
Out of Idaho?
Yeah.
So they used to make a boot, and they called it the Predator, and it was
That's a sick name, bro.
it was an awesome boot, but it was
Write
more of
that
a
down.
pack style boot with, say, a 14-inch leather upper and an air bob sole, and then they'd go in and they'd put, I think, 7 corks in the front, 2 corks on the back, and then 4 right in your instep. But it was really heavy, rubber bottom. You know, not something you should be taking into sheep and goat country just with all the rock and scree. But yeah, that's what worked in Montana. So I just showed up with my Montana kit, and that's what you did.
Do you remember the first pair of boots you bought? Like actually mountain boots?
Yeah, I bought a pair of Danners.
Yeah.
Like the
Pronghorn?
Yep.
Those were my first
Yeah,
pronghorn.
they were pretty popular. Like I grew up in Sheridan, Wyoming. There wasn't a lot of spots that you could actually even get boots. But like I remember I used to get the Cabela's catalog. Remember that thing?
Yeah.
And so like I would always like earmark things. And like my family, like we didn't have a lot of money, so like my mom would always get you something out of there every year. And like one year I earmarked them. And I was like sweet. And then I got them, and they were the wrong size.
Oh.
So, and I don't know if you guys ever like tried to like return back in the day like out of a catalog order or anything. It's the slowest process. But I ended up getting them. They're sweet. And then the Danner Bobs on the bottom, those little modules. Those are sweet.
Yeah, the elk hunter that had the bob sole.
Yep.
Yeah, American made Danners.
Yep.
I had some of those.
Yeah, that was my first pair.
Yeah, I remember Kenetrac was the first, like, I remember spending like real money on a pair of Kenetracs.
Yep.
And I wore clear through the toe. I mean,
Yep.
like everything.
Yep. My second pair was a pair of Kenetracs, and I had them. I bet you I had those boots 12 years. Just kept getting them resold. Finally,
Yeah.
they're like, it's probably not going to happen. But I love those things. Fit great.
I remember thinking, I can't believe I'm going to pay this much for a pair of boots.
Mm-hmm.
but they did the job.
I worked all summer.
Yeah.
And it was like all my entire check for one pair of boots. They're like, this is a terrible idea.
When, what point did you, I'm curious as to like when you started designing packs, or is like design, has that always been something that you wanted to do, build things?
No, I've always enjoyed building things ever since I was a kid. We had snowmobiles when I was growing up, and you're modifying those, and then enjoyed welding. Had worked in construction, so just putting things together or modifying whatever you have wasn't new to me. And then when I was in Alaska and sheep hunting, there were a few different style packs that were out there that were hunting specific, but there really wasn't anything that was focused on weight beyond that to try to reduce the weight. So I was using things like North Face and Arc'teryx, and while decent packs, none of those were designed to carry 115 pounds, which is going to be a minimum you're going to have to carry out if you're going to carry the whole load with a doll sheep. And so it became pretty uncomfortable. And then so the next step was trying to modify some of the other designs that were on the market that were in hunting, and then try to lose some weight, drop some weight off of the pack. And that was really where the whole design process for packs started. So it was as simple as just cutting things off, and then you cut things off in the wrong way, and now you have a hole. So, well, better figure out how to sew, so I need to fix this portion. And then you get that down, you're like, well, I can throw a couple more straps on here. I could add a different pocket. And just over the couple of years, just morphed into, it was like welding, except it was clean and quick. So it was kind of fun to try to put things together.
And you had no concept in your mind of like you wanted to build a pack?
No.
You were really just tinkering and like trying to make your daily life better?
Yeah, just the pack that I had, I was trying to make it better. But then once you got into how everything went together and you started using it more, you started coming up with some ideas that were farther advanced, where you're going to have to start from scratch. And then that's really where it all began. And then it came up with something at the end that was completely different than what was out there on the market, and had talked to a couple of companies and was just hoping to see somebody use it. I just wanted to be involved. I didn't have any interest in the business portion of it. And the companies I talked to, they already had their program. They were going their own direction, and so nobody bid on using it. So that's really when Stone Glacier started. I thought, well, it's either you say it could have been, or I wish I would have, or you just figure out to make some and just see what happens. And that's as simple as it was. That's all that I did. Made 60 of them. And I told Nicole, I said, well, it's either going to grow legs and go, or I promise I'll sell enough to get my money back out of it. And that's what we did. Sold those and just bought, rolled back in and got 100 the next time.
Did you build
Put it
those
all
by
back in.
hand? Were you sewing those?
No, I wasn't. I would build the prototypes and the samples, but man, doing it piecework from scratch, cutting, I just couldn't do it. It would take me 16, 18 hours to build a pack from scratch, pack and frame. So that's when I started reaching out to several different U.S. manufacturers, and there was one, and we're still with them. And
Where are they at?
fortunately,
West Coast.
yeah, West
gotcha.
Coast, and I would just call them all the time and be as nice as I could. And they said, man, I just don't know if we can do it with 60 packs. I said, how about I prepay production, I buy all the materials up front, I make sure it's on your doorstep. Everything's paid for before you even start. And that's how they finally ended up going for it. So
You teach yourself to sew then?
yeah,
You
well,
buy-
my mom helped me.
Gotcha.
yeah. I said, I don't really know what I'm doing here.
You buy yourself a sewing machine?
I did, yeah.
What kind of sewing machine? Do you remember?
Oh, now I need to think of
Is
what
there
it
some
was. It
sort
was
of
a
special
console.
Gotcha.
Yeah, console. And then it wasn't very long after that, taking the step up to a new Juki or one of those. They're like welders. I don't know if you've ever welded, but you can get a cheap welder and you can scab some stuff together, and then you get a high horsepower welder, and it changes your welding skill overnight. Just the piece of equipment.
Gotcha.
Tinkering with gear, though, is pretty fun. I had an ex-girlfriend who had a sewing machine.
Oh boy, where's this going?
and
Just one ex-girlfriend.
I was kind of doing some of these similar things. Like I'd wreck something on whatever, backpack or a piece of clothes, and she could modify it, or we're like adding new things to it. It's kind of fun. Kind of wish I had kept a sewing machine back then because it was pretty unique being able to work on your own gear, fix some problems. I didn't take it to the level you did, obviously, but like it's cool to be able to repair it,
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
make something better.
I think today, like everybody's thought process is just throw something away or
Mm-hmm.
get rid of it right when it's
Oh, for
broken.
sure.
So it's kind of nice to be able to like actually fix those things. Like one of the things I love is when like a guy sends in a backpack that was one of the first ones and they're still out there. People are still using them.
I have
and
one.
it's just beat up and you're like, holy cow, like I can't believe this thing's still functioning. And we're like, hey, we'll give you a new bag. Like, or we're like, we'll sell you a new bag at a wicked good discount. And they're like, no, I want that one back. And so like our repair guys go in there and like fix up and send it back out. Right.
It's awesome.
Old bags have too many memories.
I know. That's what they say. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty incredible.
When you're hunting sheep, I guess, right? This is
Yeah.
kind of like the driver. From everything that I've listened to, it sounds like that was kind of the driver for you as far as like working on your own backpack. And I've heard you've mentioned it a couple times, like the weight of the packs that you were using was like kind of the primary concern that you thought you could do better.
Yeah.
Are there any other things about the design of a backpack, like when you in your brain, when you're thinking about developing your own backpack, like what are the challenges that you're facing, and you're like, man, I could do this better. I should do this better.
Yeah, so I think weight organization. The other thing that I found is there are some fine backpacks out there, some that are still being used up there, developed up there, but they have a wider frame or they might be based off of a tubular frame.
Yeah.
And I found those would work in certain circumstances, but man, when you're climbing through the alders and I'm not a particularly wide guy, so like I don't have a lot of body mass, and getting on those wider footprints that were shorter, it just didn't fit my body type either. And so trying to keep the back narrow, try to keep it slick so you're not getting hung up, and then still be able to stay relatively organized. And then of course, final one is just being able to pack 115 to 120 pounds out and keep it comfortable.
So the packs that you were using, you just couldn't get, you didn't have what you needed. I guess that's the.
No, not in the ones that I ended up using there at the end were all mountaineering style packs, and they were designed to be light. There were several of them that were 5 pounds, but you know they were designed to carry 60 pounds at the most.
Yeah. What was your first pack though? What was it? Like how big was it?
Oh, the
What
first one
was
I
it?
made?
Yeah. The one you started selling, those 60 that you sold.
Yep. So there was 2 different ones. I built one that we still sell is the Solo, and it was 3,300 cubic inches. And then we made the Terminus, which we have rebranded and made the new Terminus, and it was 6,000 cubic inches. And they functioned very similar. They didn't have. I was all about as little extra fabric, making them as light as possible. And I've since found out people like to have a little blend of both, or the options to kind of go both ways.
How much did those weigh when you made them?
Oh, back
that's a
then.
good
Now I'm
question.
trying to.
Were they lighter then?
They actually were.
That's what
Yeah.
my gut would
Well,
tell me.
here's there's a learning process to it because you can make things super light and then you start using them for 4 years and you start to see wear points.
Yeah.
And so those were the things that we learned throughout this, and they might have been 6 ounces lighter, but the 6 ounces that we're adding in right now are very needed for that.
Did they have a load shelf in them when you were
They
first making
did.
them?
Yeah. But it was set up different. The load shelf was sewn into the bag and then came back around to the frame. So then after a couple of years, moved that back to where it's attached to the frame. Now you have the load shelf with every frame, so it saves the costs on the bag. And then you can use the frame without the pack. But I think the biggest thing is that when the load shelf was in the bottom, what we found is you always have this set ride height. So you're never going to be able to elevate that load any higher than the bottom of your bag because it's sewn into the bottom of the bag. So now when you take that back and your load points, your load attachment points for that load shelf are going to be lower on the frame, more on maybe the top of the lumbar. Now our attachment points come around, sling it, and you can pull back to the higher up into the mid portion of the frame. So it just helped with being able to manage the weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, then it also lets you run multiple bags, right? So you can run any bag on the frame.
sure.
So buy one frame, run any bag. So day trip, smaller bag. Backcountry trip, you can run a bigger bag.
Yeah.
Was that part of your first design? Do you remember like
Which part?
The ability to exchange sizes of bags on the same frame?
Yeah. Yeah, it was, but I had this intention of it only being a couple sizes. I didn't ever, in my wildest dreams, think that we'd have a lineup where you could run everything from the smallest to the largest. But in truth, the very first design, I had everything set up for the 3300. So when I calculated, I figured I could get all my gear, the days of food I need, all in the 3300. I could use the load shelf for excess days. Say if I was going over 4 or 5 days, all the food would go in the load shelf. And then when you spin around, come out, if you're fortunate enough to fill your tag, you're just a swap of food space for meat, and you come back out. So in my mind, it was just that 3300. But it didn't take long before I started doing a little research and talking to people. They said, no, you can't just have a 3300.
Yeah.
I would highly suggest you design something that's a little bit larger that goes with the package.
How many days were you doing out of a 3300?
Oh, you could do 10, 12, whatever. Because when you think about it, the load shelf's easily 2,500 cubic. So really now you're effectively working out of a 6,000 cubic inch pack. And a 6,000 cubic inch pack, it's very easy to get 10, 12 days of food and all 4-season gear for one person. Now, if you're hunting with a partner, now you're splitting a tent, you're splitting tripod, spotting scope. A lot of times you're splitting cooking stuff. So you can gain a lot of volume back just by hunting with a partner. So that one fit pretty well there.
I would have thought, I mean, I've done a bunch of I've done 10 days, and I typically tell people 5,900 is a good fit, maybe bump it even up to like the 69, but I don't know that many people that are actually using load shelf for packing extra gear, going in.
And that isn't something that we suggest now. That was my mindset when I started, because I wanted the smallest bag possible.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious is do you still feel that same way? Do you still pack that same way?
No, I don't. And here's the reason is it is very, very nice to have the flexibility when you're in the field to do whatever you want. Mm-hmm. And if you can add 2,000 or 3,000 cubic inches to your bag and only add 6 ounces, it's kind of a no-brainer in my opinion. And then you don't have to deal with the load shelf portion on the pack in. You're not reattaching and attaching your bag every time you want to move camp. When you do that, it's a one-time deal. Once you kill an animal, and away you go. So it simplifies it, and I just think it's worth the extra 6-8 ounces, whatever, to have a larger bag.
Yeah, convenience, right?
Yeah.
What were you taking in on those first hunts? Like 10 days. If you're going 10 days out of a 3,300 cubic inch bag,
yeah.
What are you packing?
So I was using one-man solo tents. Well, actually, it was a 2-man, but it wasn't 2-man for me. It was basically a 1-man. So Bibbler made the I-tent, and it was a single-wall tent. And then as light a sleeping bag as I could take, I think I had a Moonstone 32-degree synthetic. I'm trying to think of some of the other, but there were things. I wouldn't take a spotting scope. I wouldn't take a tripod. I was only using those little pocket Leica 10 power binoculars, those little tiny things. So you're sacrificing a lot of, I don't know. And when you get in that situation, many times you think, man, I wish I had a spotting scope. And I actually ended up going with one of the little tiny Leopolds. It was almost like half of a binocular. I think it was maybe 20 power is what I ended up using. So really trying to minimize all those things. But I almost had to, because what I was trying to do is make one trip in and one trip out. Because effectively, you'd be able to double your range if you could do that. And time always ended up being the limiting factor. You only had X amount of days, and you could guarantee you're going to have a couple of weather days somewhere in there. And so if you were able to get everything out in one load, that was a big difference opposed to shuttling loads. So if I could keep the weight with a bone sheep at 115 to 120 pounds, that was something where I could keep moving. If you're talking 150 pounds, now I'm traveling everything twice without a doubt. I couldn't do that in there. So, yeah, you left a lot of things at home.
Yeah, left in a lot of convenience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the weight of those packs? Like fully loaded, you're going in for 10 days. What are you talking? 30 pounds? 40?
No, with food, you'd be more than that, because I don't think it'd be very difficult to get under 1.5 pounds a day for food, even nowadays with all freeze dried. So I would say it would have to be in that 45 to 50 pound range.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's light.
So you're kind of light.
Yeah, I'm not that. I don't know. I'm curious. That's why I'm interested in talking because
Yeah.
I think you've always. I don't know. Do you pack the same way now? Do you feel like that's changed? And I guess this is leading into some other questions I had. I was curious as to what is always in your backpack, and then what do you think that generally people pack too much of, or that they pack that they don't need? Like what are things that you found that you've ditched over the years, or things that you've added over the years?
So yeah, on the first part of that,
It's like an 8-part question.
yeah, no, that's okay. A lot of that is really country specific and hunt specific. So take for example, we all know that there are going to be certain situations where maybe you don't need a Swaro 80 on this hunt, and you can take something that's smaller, the little ATC, or maybe you don't need one at all. And so I think that's where you get your big variations in weight. Or take, for example, on an archery hunt to a rifle hunt, I'm going to carry a larger tripod because now I can shoot off of it. And I think that's worth carrying an extra 6 or 8 ounces, where in archery season, you might carry something that just holds your spotter. But some of the things that I now carry in my kit all the time that I didn't used to is I used to just carry a stove with enough fuel kind of as an emergency backup, and wouldn't count on cooking every night. So try to take things that could just be rehydrated, or just a lot of bars and that kind of stuff. And you didn't necessarily look forward to mealtime, but it was enough to keep you moving. So now I do, when I carry my stove, carry enough fuel and at least one freeze-dried type good meal for evening. That seems to be worth the effort for me. The other thing I've started throwing in is a pillow, one of those little blow-up pillows. I know there's lots of them out there, and I wish I had all the hours that I was uncomfortable and got horrible sleep back, because it makes a huge difference being able to get some good sleep.
I've gone the opposite. I've ditched my pillow.
Did you?
got rid of
Yeah,
it?
I don't take one at all. Those little inflatables, even though they're like 2.3 ounces, it always just squirts out. I always lose it in the middle of the
I
night.
put it in the
somewhere.
hood of my sleeping bag.
That's what I did. That's what I told him.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit comfortably then.
Is it because you're too tall?
I'll just roll up a jacket.
Some guys I think blow them up too much too.
Could
right?
be.
Like,
Yeah, and they're just rock hard.
Yeah, so I like go like little like I got a big head, so like I like a little indentation in there.
Yeah.
That's it.
And put it in the hood of your sleeping bag and your money.
Yeah.
Do you guys get that question quite a bit at Stone Glacier? Like, they want like full gear list. They want an idea of what they should bring.
Yeah, and the hard part is everybody's a little bit different,
Yeah,
right?
subjective.
Because I'm kind of the opposite of Kurt. Like, I go pretty minimal on my clothes. Like, I can get by. Like, I'm a warm-blooded guy. Like, I can get by with like pretty minimal clothes, right? Like, I don't take a lot of extras.
Yeah.
Like, just what I need. But I like food, obviously. So I try to take as much food as I think I can actually eat. Like, I don't like to be excessive with it, but yeah, man, like when you're glassing all day and you're kind of bored, there's nothing better than like a tasty snack. You
Yeah.
know?
What's the one snack you look forward to the most?
I don't eat a lot of these, but Snickers bar are like my go-to. Like, I like to slide a few Snickers in
My
there.
man.
Yeah.
One a day.
Yeah, and then
When I'm
I like, depending on the friends, like I don't do it for all my friends. I like to sometimes like hide like snacks too, like something that they'd be surprised with, and then you'll be up there and be like, "What's up?" I got a buddy.
For them or for you?
For everybody,
You eat
yeah.
in front of them.
No, sometimes
You're like, man, you look miserable. Look
Yeah.
what I got to
Yeah.
eat.
No, I like to share them, but we had a buddy who would always pack in beers, and
Yeah.
like he would like
My
not really
dad.
tell you. And so then you'd be like, oh, this is great. And he was hunting with my other buddy one time. Well, it's actually Dustin from Mount Tough.
Yeah.
And like they like hiked in this spot. He had like 3 beers or whatever. He gave them all out. He like opened his and then he like didn't know it. He tipped it over and like spilt it all over the ground. And so like he went to grab it and it was all empty. And like, dude, they were like far back. And he was so bummed that he hiked that thing in there and never got to drink it. But yeah, food. I try not to skimp on food. But
My dad used
not
to
be
do that.
excessive.
He'd always pull out a cold Coke, like when it was like down and out, wasn't going to happen, or if we killed something, just like a little celebratory cold Coke. It was the best.
Yeah.
What does your food look like for a day? You don't look like a guy that is like, you look, I don't know if you'll take this as a compliment or I don't mean to, but you look like you must maintain a pretty good diet. Like you look lean, you look thin, You look like you must work out still. So I'm curious
Yeah.
about your diet.
Well, I'm fortunate. My wife Nicole does a very good job of keeping me in shape, and puts a lot of effort into our meals. And I'm glad it's not left to me, because it would look much different. So yeah, we eat pretty clean, pretty much all wild game, and then salmon and halibut. We still have friends in Alaska, and they seem to hook us up every year. So yeah, it's pretty clean in that respect. But as far as, were you talking about what
Yeah, like when you go on a
hunting?
backpack hunt. Yeah, what does a day look like?
So most I package everything up by day. Most everything is going to be in that 3,000 range as far as calories, and I know that we can burn much more than that, but I don't need it if I bring it. I just feel like when I'm full, I don't operate as much. But most of it ends up being bars. I've tried to take a little bit more in the whole grains area, because I think that fills you up. Because there's sometimes you can eat a 200 calorie bar and it doesn't feel like you ate anything. You're just starving anyway. So I think being able to do that, and then take one freeze-dried meal for the night, try to stay in that 600 to 800 calorie range for that one, and then also try to stay away from anything that's super high fat, trying to keep the fat, carbs, protein balance in there, just because we eat a fairly low fat diet, and you get some of these meals that are 50, 60, 80% fat, and you eat it and just don't operate at the same level, for me anyways. And then also trying to keep the salt down in some of those freeze-dried meals, because I feel like you can get some of them that have a pretty high salt content, and I can feel that as well. So, but it's pretty simple beyond that. A lot of protein bars, and then more recently tried to pay attention just to the number of sugars that are in things, because when you go that route with a bunch of dried, you start calculating up every one of these bars as 15 to 20 grams of sugar.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're looking at this and you're like 10 times the number of sugars you eat on a daily basis when we're trying to train. And so I don't know, just trying to hit that middle ground opposed to trying to hit a cheat code on it.
It is so frustrating with all the bars we have available today that all of them still have metric tons of sugar in them.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know why.
Yeah, I've been on
'Cause
a
they're
no added
delicious.
sugar diet.
Yeah.
Like just nothing with added sugar in it. I won't eat it.
You have been?
Yeah.
For
Feel
how
great.
long?
I'm only about a month in.
Yeah.
But man, you feel awesome. Like, and then after about a month, you'll like start to notice like some like dropping some lbs and stuff. And I used to like work out way more, and then I don't know, life got in the way like over the holidays and kind of last month, and you're like, get back on a little bit. But yeah, I've just been really trying to steer clear of anything with
Yeah.
added sugar.
Yeah. It's the only way to get those bars to actually be edible, though. I mean, if you really
I know.
think
No,
about
there's
it,
all,
you know?
some of the ones like, gosh, just get rid of it. Doesn't
I mean,
add anything.
there's some better ones out there for sure, but like when you're just talking about a bar in general, you're gonna have to add something to it.
You're in the
Yeah.
mountains.
And the way I look at it, like, if I'm going to eat sugar, that's why I pack the Snickers, right? Like I actually
Yeah,
want to
you
enjoy
actually
it,
want the
right?
good one, yeah.
Like I'm going to,
It's nothing better than a Snickers when you're hunting.
oh, dude, like
It-
after
it
you,
hits.
yeah, like right before you start packing out, right? Like did all the work, got an animal, got it all boned out, sit down and eat a Snickers, let's go.
Yeah, I
Right,
said that before. Nothing tastes better than a Snickers
Yep.
up there.
Yeah, this podcast, we're back from the pee break, but we're gonna take a hard left here because as we were walking out, Lyle decides to tell us that he's been shot.
Not today.
Not today,
Not
but like
recently, no.
He is in
but-
Vegas, but not
we-
today.
I mean, I think Kurt's story is more interesting, but like,
this hard left about being shot.
Yeah.
What happened?
yeah. Well, I was telling Trail, we were breaking to go to the bathroom, and so like, I have a smaller bladder, like just like a part of it is all this, but and
What's
so
my excuse then?
yeah, well, I don't know, just a little lady
Prostate
bladder for you or
check?
something, but no, when I was in high school, I played football forever, and then my senior year, I just didn't see eye to eye with one of the coaches, so I thought, man, I'm gonna go give like cross country a try. So I went and did cross country, and I was actually like pretty good, right? Like all you did was run. It was fantastic, right? Like no one yelled at you, and like you didn't have to be in the right spot all the time, and like like it was like this is good. And I was a wrestler too, and pretty successful at wrestling. So like I appreciated individual sports, but I like team sports as well. But I was like, man, this cross country thing's the ticket. And so it was the big state meet. We did the meet. Our team did great. We went back home, and the next day is opening day of Montana rifle season. And so we were like at this little party with all our friends, and one of my good buddies, Tony Larson, who I'm still friends with today, like one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in your life. He and we were like, we should go hunting tomorrow, right? Like opening day deer season, like that's our tradition, you know? We're like, cool. And like it just happened to be we had another friend there, and it was kind of one of those scenarios where like he was kind of interested in going hunting with us, but I think he just wanted to hang out. And so, you know, normally we just hunted together. Like that was like our thing. Like it wasn't really an invite for anybody else to go, but we're like, hey man, come with us, you know? And so we were going out to Tony's place to hunt. He lived about 35 miles out of town. I lived a little closer to town. So I went and picked up my buddy. And I remember like we're like loading up his stuff, and he has this tiny little revolver. And I just remember thinking like, obviously he doesn't know what we're doing, right? Like, I don't know, but like maybe we'll shoot it, right? Like, you know, we'll just shoot it in the dirt, and that'll be a fun thing, and he'll get to do that. And so we go out and hunt, and it was terrible hunting, like 85, 90 degrees, just super, super hot. But there was a lot of prairie dogs. And so we started shooting prairie dogs with our hunting rifles, and, you know, curious boys, like, you're like, well, let's go and see what this looks like. And so like we started like kind of like going out, and then you'd see it, you know, another dog, and you'd shoot it. And so we ended up being like pretty far from the truck. And we were just kind of chatting and like talking about it, like, man, this is a good time. Thanks for coming, you know. And we're like, well, we should get ready to go back home because my mom's gonna be wondering where we're at, right? And so we're standing in like kind of a circle, like, you know, so like you're my buddy, Brady. This is me. No, this is Tony, and this is me. And I was looking down at the ground. I remember that like vividly, and I hear a gunshot, and I was like, whoa. I was like, who shot, right? Because we're all standing right here. No one would shoot. And everybody's kind of like, not me. And my buddy is over. He's like, he's kind of like looking at his gun. And I looked down, and I was telling Trey, I was wearing, you remember River Ghost camo? I had the River Ghost camo pants on, new, mint. I was stoked. Bottom of them, I bought my boots, my Kendricks, right? So, and I looked down, and on my left leg, there's just this like pool of blood like starting to go down my leg. And I was like, oh man. And about that time, it was about the same time that Austin Powers movie was out, and I was like, you remember, like, you shot me, you a-hole. Like that's what I'm thinking in my mind, right? But then I like put my hand on it, and it was weird. It was like it was super hot. It didn't really hurt that bad, but it had like I remember like the skin was like kind of like almost like a baseball, like just a big bulge, and you're like, whoa, like that doesn't feel good. So we like turn around and look down, and my truck is like, dude, it looked like just this tiny dot. And I was like, oh gosh. So we like literally raced down there. I'm like keeping pressure on it. Like these guys got all our stuff. And we get down there, and we're in my 1966 Ford truck, like this old ranch truck that I was driving, which, dude, I think top speed ever I got it to like 65 miles an hour.
Were you driving?
I
Going
was,
back?
no, I was gonna I drove there, but my buddy Tony's like, hey, I'll drive, and so I thank you. And Tony he's probably like one of the most like calm, like level-headed people you'll ever meet in your life, right? Like he was in the military and ended up actually serving in the military for quite a while after all this. But so we get in the truck, and like I lay in the front seat, and I'm in the passenger seat, and I'm just laying there. And I remember like I kind of just like it felt good to like just like lean over and put pressure on it. But when I would take my hand off of it, like it would be like, and you're like, well, this is no bueno. And there wasn't enough room for my buddy, so he had to get in the back of the truck, right? And I remember thinking like as we're driving 100 miles an hour down the road, like that had to be like just a terrible ride in the back, you know? And so I'm thinking we're gonna get there, and he's not gonna be in the back, right? Like, and so it's about 35 miles. We race into town, and we go to the emergency room. And my buddy jumps out of the back, and Tony gets out of the front, and they like just leave. So I remember just laying in the truck, and it was like eerily quiet, and I was like, no, not gonna die in the truck.
Doing paperwork.
Right. And so I just got out and like hobbled myself into the emergency room, and the lady was like, oh God. She's like, she's like, let me help you. And I was like, no, I got it. And I just got up on the bed, and I remember these two older gals working in the emergency room, and they needed to move me from bed to bed, and they like started to pick me up, but they weren't like strong enough, and I was like, no, I'll just get in the other bed. So I got in the other bed for them, and then passed out, and then woke up about a day and a half later after kind of everything had settled down. But yeah, it was pretty wild.
So who shot you?
It was the buddy that went with us, and he had this revolver, and it's crazy. You like actually like flipped open the cylinder, and then you pull this little pin back. When you pull this little pin back, it would let you like dump the shells out. And they think what happened was he pulled that pin back, and it actually shot the bullet out of the cylinder and not the barrel. And so like it doesn't have any trajectory then, right? Like because he had the gun, like we talked to him about gun safety. We're like, hey dude, like you're new but yeah, it hit me. So yeah, 22 long rifle right in the hip.
How close?
Probably 4 feet.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like robbery style. Like it's right there.
And you were out for a day and a half.
Yeah, I mean, they did the surgery or whatever, but like I don't really remember. Like it was about a day and a half. Like once I got to the hospital until I really started to like wake up and remember like what was going on. But so yeah, they did the surgery, and I mean I was like not passed out that entire time, but you just don't remember everything, you know. But yeah, it took about a day and a half before I was like started to put the whole thing together again and can kind of like process it.
And that's why you have a small bladder.
Partly, yeah. So it hit some of my bladder, hit my small intestine, large intestine. So they took some of that out. Apparently, you can just sew those right back together. And so yeah, it was kind of crazy. And like in the town where I grew up, Sheridan, like obviously this stuff like doesn't happen, but luckily there was a guy there, a surgeon that had experience with these things, and he was able to clean it all up. But yeah, so I have a scar like from here all the way down, like this. Really, like I don't know, like looking back, I'm like I don't know why you would make the scar look like that. Like you know, like I'm glad I'm alive and like it's just a scar, but you're
you had
like
a C-section.
yeah,
No.
but you're like this seems like this doesn't seem like you would need to do that, you know. Even my wife, who's a nurse, she's like, yeah, they didn't need to be that big. You know? So
He's
yeah.
like, let's just get in there and see what we're working with.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's what he did, but yeah. So
That's
obviously it's
crazy.
pretty crazy, you know, kind of wild, but.
Well, thanks for saving that to when we broke to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, it's so long ago that you kind of forget that it even happened. Honestly, like it was.
Is that the
Such a long
craziest
time ago.
like situation, life-threatening type situation you've had out in the woods?
Yeah, I had a guy, my brother, like he was chopping wood, and I was like, "Don't do that. You're gonna hit your hand." And he like stuck an axe in his hand pretty good, but we were able to
Yeah.
just fix that up. And he actually was able to do the hunt,
I have
but
a cousin that lost a finger that
there's
way.
quite a lot of blood. Like you're like, "Oh, this looks terrible," but yeah, that's probably the worst, I would guess.
Yeah.
Like, worst thing I've seen. I've seen some things, but that was the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kurt, ever? You've done a lot of solo hunting, right?
Yeah.
Do you ever have put yourself in a pinch?
Well, I think we've all put ourselves in a pinch, but was fortunate
Yeah.
enough to get out of it, and then not do it again, or done some things where you thought, oh, that could have really went south. I was
Yeah.
really lucky there, but no, nothing like getting shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gun safety, folks.
Boy,
It's a
that's
big deal.
fact.
Yeah. So now I'm sensitive to more gun stuff. Like I just try not to put myself in situations with people that don't know, or if I do, try to educate them. You know?
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's
Just go
pretty wild.
bow hunting only.
No, I shoot guns all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
I had my kid up last night actually at the range. He got a shotgun for Christmas, and we went up and shot 22s.
Yeah.
And you know, like at the shooting range, they've got like individual bays built
Mm-hmm.
out. You know, like where the berms are built up like 8 feet high, and you've got another bay next to that, and you've probably got like 5 of them, 6 of them. But there was I was telling him there were some kids on behind us in the bay, but for whatever reason they decided that they move all their targets to the side bay, so they were shooting towards the bay beyond them, like
Oh, wow.
just through the berm. And I was like, hey,
Probably shouldn't do that.
the back of that bay is the intended direction that you ought to be shooting. So
I think the thing that I learned from it mostly is like, I mean, my family grew up. I mean, guns were like a part of our culture,
Yeah,
right?
me
We grew up
too.
on a ranch.
Yeah.
You shot a gun every day at something, probably, you know.
Yeah.
And like we were always taught, like my dad and my stepdad were always very much like, this is what you do with guns. And so like part of you is that you're like a little bit embarrassed almost that like this has happened to you because like you know you're like dude like we know about gun safety, but it just goes to show, and this is what I always tell everybody, like it could happen to anybody at any time, so
Yeah.
you really have to be mindful of those things because while they're awesome, they will get you.
what were you taking on your first sheep hunts as far as weapons go? I'm curious, like a gun, what were you packing?
So when I first moved to Alaska, my senior year of college, I'd always shot Weatherby, so I went and bought knowing that I was going to go to Alaska, I bought a 375 H&H. Weatherby had just come out with a rifle that had a synthetic stock and was stainless, and it was their first model, but they didn't make it in anything bigger than a 300 Weatherby. So I went and bought one, and then had it rechambered to a 378 Weatherby, and that's what I hunted with for years, kind of with the intention of, okay, I don't have a lot of cash. I'm gonna have one rifle,
one and done,
and hunt everything with it. And that was what I used the entire time I was up there, was a 378 Weatherby for everything. But I had it pretty trimmed down for what it was, and made some upgrades here and there. Ended up with a carbon barrel on it before I left, and yeah, so not your standard sheep round, I would say.
That's what Brady would take though, huh? 300, which
I take my 300 round.
yeah,
Go big.
Go big.
One shot at a time, right?
One shot at a time.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I don't know if you ever heard, if I have to put a round in and I don't end up shooting, I have to pull my bolt out to
Yeah.
actually get it out because it can't eject.
You
out
could
of the
fix
action.
these problems, you know.
Can you though?
Yeah, I think you
I'd probably still manage to do them on a different gun.
You
too.
might, yeah.
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 You still
Yeah.
have to do that?
Yeah, I still have to do that.
Pull the bolt.
I have to pull the bolt completely out to eject a round with the bullet in the cartridge.
I'm sure Brady's safe, but remind me not to go hunting with him.
That doesn't seem that efficient.
That's why I never have anything in there because it's like only when I'm going to get ready to kill and
Right.
I'm going to kill it. So yeah, if you went to shot your audad
Yeah.
and we loaded one in there, I would literally have to open it up, push the bolt release, pull the bolt all the way out to get that round with the
That
bullet
seems
on it.
insane.
Yeah, precision. It's built for one purpose, Trail.
Fair enough. Remind me not to mess
Not
with
built
Brady's
for
gun.
mass
Yeah.
repeatability.
Yeah.
Just one and done.
One and done.
Did you? Were you gonna follow up?
No, I was going to go a random different direction for a second.
Yeah,
but you
go
guys-
ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to ask, like, because thinking to myself, if I built gear, no one would probably buy it because I'm so like dialed in like a weird psycho way. How do you balance like what you want to build compared to what you think a lot of other people might like as well, and that fine line of
Single shot rifles.
it's kind of like falls into that, but like
Yeah, there was that shift, and I learned that in the first couple of years where I was building exactly what I wanted. And yeah, that might fit a portion of the crowd, but normally it was a smaller group. So what I've tried to do, especially from the backpack perspective, is do anytime you can make it a modular setup. So you can choose to have it or you can choose not to have it. Obviously, once you get into apparel, you get into things like that, you really don't have those options. And so trying to walk that fine line between being minimalist, but having enough features and making it functional, because there are some things out there where when you remove a feature set, you make it less functional in the field. Now you have to decide, when is it functional? Is it because it's convenience around camp, because I want to have all these little zip out pockets, or I want to do this? Or if I'm in that situation and I have a one-time opportunity in an animal, that better be absolutely functional at every time. So you really kind of quantify those out in your feature sets of what's convenience and what's not. And then of course, as our customer base has gotten larger, we're in the business not to build what Kurt wants. We're in the business to build what our customer wants too. So trying to offer more varied products that will fit all of that, everything from the day hunting, more organization, to the minimalist, to you just kind of have to take all that in. And really where that comes in is we'll have ideas, I'll go through the design process, and then bring everybody in and we go through it and say, okay, does this make sense? Is this a good idea? Does this provide what we're being asked for? And so that ends up being the process. And, just going back to the team with renditions. So it's just not my opinion on anything.
yeah.
Is that your day to day?
Yep. Well, it's a little bit of everything. It's anything product. So it can be anything from production to sourcing to communication with factories, and then the job is morphed where there's a little bit less on the design side, and the development portion of a project ends up being very time consuming. So you come up with an idea, you can put it together, but now you have to put together the entire package to make it. How do you communicate it? You have to build a tech pack. You have to manage all the materials. You have to have yields, quantities. So there's a lot of things that go into it on the backside once you have the product. So there's all of that, and we have one other guy in our shop, Taylor, that works with me, and we just split up a lot of those things. So
Do you bounce ideas off each other, or do you try to keep those like separate to work to a point, and then say, hey, check this out?
Oh, I think there's lots of ideas that are thrown around where we're like, we should build this, and you can kind of like Kurt's just like, yeah, yeah, we could.
We do that.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, to Brady's point, like, I mean, it is tricky to like figure out what our customers want and like still stay true to the customers that help get us kind of going. And I think Kurt, and I say we, the row we, Kurt does a nice job though. Like our Terminus pack is a great example of a pack that really, in a lot of ways, I think Kurt built from himself, but it speaks to a lot of our niche customers still that, are looking for something that is as absolute light and minimal as possible. So you always have that, but yeah, as our audience goes, the feature set kind of goes the same way. But you always want to stay true to like the foundation of your brand, right? Like that less is more kind of philosophy. But yeah, we bounce ideas all the time.
Is
Like,
it a democracy? Do you come up with a product and say, "Hey, what do you guys think?" And you kind of look at it
Yeah,
and
most
say,
of the time, I really do, because I think that it's important that we only have, because we really do have a small team, so there's a limited amount of time over the course of 365 days that you can develop certain things. So you need to prioritize and not get sucked down the rabbit hole on something that is going to take you in a spot where it's wasted time. So I really try to do that up front from the design perspective, to come up with the ideas and have a clear path that these are the things that we're going to put my time worth before we do waste that time.
"Yeah." Do you have any products that you come up with that they were like, I don't know about that? You think any? I was just curious.
I can't think of any right now.
we have some stuff in development that we're like retooling that we're excited about, where you kind of thought like you hit it, like this is gonna work.
Yeah.
And it does work, but there maybe it's a fabric or like a seam or something where you're like, shoot, like we have to rethink that process. Like our gaiters is a good example, right? Like we made some original gaiters and we're like, these are pretty good. And then we used them and we're like, these are okay. And then you kind of like kept going back. So that was like a 2.5, 3 year long process of like getting those things.
First set of gators.
Yeah, to where you want
The
them. Yeah.
Alpine.
Bino harness too.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
That one took forever. But that's okay. We didn't set a time frame on it.
Yeah.
We said we wanted to make something that was unique and that works, and
That's what's kinda
sometimes
nice.
that's what it does.
Yeah.
Not setting a time frame, just using it until it's finally the perfect
Yeah.
product.
Yeah. I think the hard part is, in my mind, you can always improve on something. So you have to decide at some point that this is what we were shooting for.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to
Yeah.
production with it.
Yep.
Yeah. And that philosophy is like in everything you do though, right? Like I'm sure you guys do too. Like everything you do could be always better, but at some point you have to say like, we have to just go, right? Like we have to release this feature. We have to do this. Like it's going to work. It may not be exactly what we want, but it's going to work at a high level and high function. And Kurt, like he won't tell you, but like everything's going out like at a super high function. It's the small things that he sees, those little details where you're like, oh man, we got to fix that or retool. And the nice thing is like most of our backpacks and all the US made stuff, like we'll make small inline changes all the time of like, hey, this should be different, and just fix it and never even let the consumer know.
Yeah, the goal is right. Like you said, we do this all the time as well. And is it going to benefit the customer? Yeah, hugely. Okay, well then let's produce it then. Like we don't need to make it that little bit better. This is already hugely beneficial to the customer.
Yeah, I think failure to launch is like the biggest
Huge,
kind of like hurdle
yeah.
for everybody. Is it's not absolutely perfect. Well, what's perfect? Like
No
define
such
that.
thing.
Right.
The,
Define it.
the decision is this beneficial to the consumer in a valuable way of what the monetary value is on it. If the answer is yes, then ship it.
Yeah.
You know.
100%.
Yeah, and I think that takes a group, because if you leave
Oh,
it,
it does.
I'm
Yeah.
the individual that would not launch.
Right.
I'd be like, nah, I don't know.
Not
we
ready.
should do this.
Not
I'm
ready.
usually the guy when we have an idea and they're like, yeah, we're ready to go. I'm like, well, what about this? Couldn't it do this? Could it do that? Well, yeah, it could, but we can't get there right now. We'll get there, but we won't get there right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a hard. I feel like I would never launch anything. That's why I don't own anything. Your first pack was the Crux. with
Yeah, the frame was
frame.
the crux.
And then
Yeah.
what was the jump to the X curve, and what was the need for that? And I'd be interested in just hearing your thoughts on like when somebody should have a crux versus a X curve.
Yeah, you bet. So yeah, started out with the crux, and for those of you who haven't seen it, it has straight stays in it, and it was a little bit of a hurdle to get over, because if you look at many of the mountaineering packs, most of them have some sort of curved stays in there, and a lot of them have aluminum stays where you can match them to your back. And really what you're trying to do is, in the end, you have two load-bearing surfaces. You have your hips and you have the top of your shoulders. And really any contact on the back of your shoulders is stabilizing the load. So trying to get as much comfort, as much surface area as you can in those areas, and of course the load transfer on the hip belt onto your hips, because you're going from a vertical to a horizontal, so it's not as easy to get that load disbursement as it is on your shoulders, of course. And so most of that comes through your lumbar. Well, there's a certain number of guys, women too, who wear a pack in a spot where when they put the straight stays on, your back sets the angle at which the lumbar is going to contact your back. And given the lumbar is a pretty small area that we're trying to transfer load to, if you don't have that angle correct, then your lumbar isn't matching up. Your lumbar pad isn't matching up to your lower portion of your back. And then you could easily increase the pressure by twofold because half of the lumbar area isn't. And so by creating the X-curve stays, we're able to change the angle of that lumbar pad so you can get 100% match up with the back portion of your back. And then you get better load transfer. So really that's all that we're trying to do in between the straight stays and the curved stays. And so that's where the X curve came from, is trying to hit that number of people who would prefer the curved stays. Very similar to an arch in a boot, where somebody can put a boot on and they can tell you right from the beginning that this is going to cause issues, or this doesn't have enough arch in it, and just a comfort. So it's really difficult to put people in certain categories because we've been proven wrong many times. And what we do find is the crux frame, the straight stays, will fit more people than the X-curve, which is not what I thought when I was first designing it. But we see this especially at trade shows, and we see this at our shop, where if you have two loaded packs and you don't tell anybody about them being curved or straight, just try on these two packs and tell me which one's more comfortable, a majority of the people are going to pick the straight stays, surprisingly enough. And so, but the other thing that we found about both of them is that with either one, through correct fit, most people can wear either one of them. But that's where our customer service comes in. So if somebody does buy one online, they weren't able to try both of them. If you have issues with the fit, we can get you another set of stays or send it to us. We'll put the stays in, and we know enough about it that we believe this is going to fix your problem. And so we try to go both ways with it. And that's one of the things that we really try to stress is when somebody buys a pack, put weight in it and take it for a hike. And if it doesn't fit exactly how you want, let's take the next step.
Do you have one that you prefer?
I do. I prefer the straight stays. We do find that taller individuals prefer the straight stays and shorter individuals prefer the straight stays because the curve of the stays in the X curve are set. So if you don't fall within that specific realm, and you think about when those stays wrap around the back, over the back of your shoulders, if your shoulders are lying higher or lower, it can drastically change the angle that the lumbar contacts because you've changed the whole angle that you're wearing the pack. So, yeah, and then that's what's kind of been surprising over the course of running this business or making product for 14 years is it's really hard to classify people in one or the other.
I like the X curve. I like the curve stays.
I like the curve stays too.
Yeah, but I mean, to Kurt's point, like it, and part of it, I think we may have marketed the X curve a little too heavy, but yeah, we haven't found a definitive way to say you have a curved back, you have a straight back, you have a curved back, right? Like we've done all the tests, stand against the wall, put your foot, your fist back there, tennis ball, whatever it may be. Like I don't think there's a definitive test or there's not a definitive thing that says you have a flat or a curved back. Honestly, the best way to know is to try a backpack on. But I would say the majority, about 80%, I think it's like 80% of our customers prefer the fit of a Crux over an X curve.
When you say put weight in it and try it out, what sort of weight are you talking about that you would suggest people to throw in?
Well, I think it depends on the individual. So depending on your hunting style, I would suggest putting the max weight that you're going to be carrying because that's when you're going to notice the biggest difference. Take, for example, for me, I could wear either stays up to about 60 pounds in multiple days, and then I see a difference between the stays. The straight stays are more comfortable for me. So if 50 pounds is all that you're going to put in there, that's what I'd suggest. If you're going to be carrying heavy weight, I would get up in that 80, 90 pound range at least and put some miles on it, but not so heavy that you won't be able to put 3 or 4 miles because allow the pack to move and do that. Yeah.
I like the curve stays too, but I'm trying to decide if it's just because of like those are the stays that I use and that I like, and I'm like, yeah, these are better, and I like them because I like them. You know what I mean? I can't tell if I'm inherently biased because that's just what I've liked and used. I was curious, when you go to a trade show and you have people try on both packs, do they generally tell you which one they like? I mean, and to me, it's so much like it would almost be, I would want like a couple days with it. I'd want to go out and hike around with it.
Yeah, I mean, we're putting most of our backpacks, we have about 50 to 60 pounds in them when they come to a show and try them on, or come to our showroom and try them on. So you're going to get a pretty good idea of like, oh, this is going to fit. And a lot of times it's like, it's a blink reaction for most people. If they put one on and they're like, oh, this feels good. And then they put the other one on, they're like, oh, this is great. Like they're having like this reaction of like, that's going to be their backpack, right? Some guys will put them on and they'll be like, this one feels good. That one kind of feels good. And that's kind of the person like me. Like I can wear a Crocs too, but
me.
right.
I'd
but
be
at
like,
the end
I
of the
don't
day,
know.
like, I think if you're on the fence, I would steer somebody to a Crocs. Like I just think overall it's going to fit you probably long-term better. But yeah, it's just kind of a blink reaction thing. And like we do have people that put one on, go and use it and come back and like, man, like maybe that wasn't for me, and get them different stays, and man, they're good to go then. But yeah.
The other thing I like about the Crux too is that you end up normally above the lumbar, you're going to end up with more of an air gap. So they'll vent a little bit better. Just because you're not matching that curve as it comes around the back of your shoulders. So if somebody's in between, that's another thing that I mentioned.
I know that you're like here in maybe a half hour or so, you're doing kind of some customer service stuff with our guys here and just kind of running through some of the products. This is probably kind of a lead-in question, and I'd be interested in just hearing what kind of stuff you're going to prepare for those guys just on, I think it'd just help our audience too, on what kind of packs people should buy or whatever it is you have prepared for them. I think it'd be good to talk about. But I've had the pack I'm using, I've had it for, I think 2017 is when I bought it. So it's getting pretty old. Do you suggest like updating shoulder straps, hip belts, anything like that as far as foam goes? Because this last Elkhorn, I was wondering, I wonder if I should update these shoulder straps if the foam's getting compacted.
We don't see that very often.
Really? Gotcha.
You might see, say, a 10-year-old pack that maybe has lost a little bit, but not much. You just don't see much with the density of foam that we're using.
Sometimes I see the lumbar pad will get kind of squished out. If anything, I would say we send out a few lumbar pads here and there, but for the most part, that foam's like, it's got a lot of memory in it for sure.
Yeah, it fits great. I just remember thinking, I wonder if I'd benefit if I went to like new shoulder harness just a little bit, because you get on like a long. I mean, this was like 9 miles one way, right?
Yeah.
It took me 3 days to pack this bull out, and you get to a point sometimes where your hips are so sore and you take those little breaks, right? Like you let it out and you put a lot more pressure on your shoulders, and then you cinch it back in. You kind of swap back and forth towards the end of the hike. Yeah. And I remember thinking, I wonder if I could benefit from like some new shoulder pads, but that's why I was just curious.
Yeah, I mean, we have them.
Do you sell them? Do you part things out?
Yeah, we'll sell stuff individually.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we don't always sell them on our website. We just found that honestly we weren't selling that many.
Sure.
Like they weren't a hot commodity, so we just took them off. But yeah, like if you call up, like we swap belts all the time for guys and shoulder straps, more foam in your lumbar, things like that. Whatever you need, we'll ship it.
Gotcha. What kind of like warranty do you fix packs? You have stuff come in?
Yeah, so we have a lifetime warranty against like manufacturing defects, right? So like if a zipper breaks, a seam busts out, like we're gonna replace all that. And to be honest, and it'll probably get it, the customer service guys kind of mad, but like we're pretty dang liberal. Like we've had guys kick a backpack into a fire, we'll like, you name it, dogs chew things up. Like we'll pretty much fix anything, and most of the time it's at little to no cost. So
gotcha.
Traditionally, honestly, dogs and mice are the hardest on backpacks. Yeah. I don't know who's storing their backpack on the ground in a shed, but don't do that. So hang those things up. Keep them out of your pets, because dogs really love them. But.
Yeah, especially when they get bloody.
Yeah. But yeah, like we'll fix things all the time. Like I said, we get bags in that are ancient and fix them up, send them out. Rarely it does happen, but broken stays, like we'll fix those too, things like that. Most of the times the things that happen, like the stays and whatnot, are normally people get 100 pounds on and then zip it and drop it on the ground, and those are the kind of things that break stays. But
and horses and four-wheelers and those types of things.
Yeah, quite a few things. But yeah, we love fixing gear and sending it back out there. Like I would rather have a guy buy backpack having his entire life, and just
Yeah.
keep using it. I think that's awesome.
When you guys run through somebody through a pack fitting, like where do you start?
So what I start, say if somebody's coming in from the ground up and wants to know what pack, start from the very beginning. What are you using this pack for? What is your hunting style? So, and what are the lengths of the trips that you're taking? And so let's start with number one, we'll get cubic inches and we'll figure out where you're at. Are you looking for one of our smaller internal day packs? Is that what fitting, or are we moving into the frame style? And then once you get that established, then move to which configuration of stays are you going to do? So get them in both styles of frames if you have the opportunity. And then go to bag size. And you'll find that many of our bags, there might be a range of bag sizes that will work for somebody. And so they might pick 3 of our largest packs, and any of those will have the volume that you need. But you need to make sure that you have the volume to start. And then after that is feature set. So we know these 3 are going to work. Do you prefer a center zip? Do you prefer a side zip? Are you an archery hunter? Are you going to want to strap your bow on the back? Are you a rifle hunter? What spotting scope do you carry? How do you want access to it? Some of those types of things. And it doesn't take long. In just a few minutes, you can whittle it down to right where you need to be, what's going to fit that hunting style and that person the most. And I think a lot of that preference also falls around what they're used to using. So if somebody's using a bag in the past that is a side zip, that's how they're used to getting into it. They'll kind of gravitate towards that.
Do you have one that you prefer as far as zipper goes? Because this is
Yeah.
something like I don't think about that much, but as I've thought about the packs that I've had over the years, and I've had just about every one of them, it's like a real minimal thing, but I definitely have preferences, things that I like. I like the horseshoe on the 5900. I like the center zip of the 7400 that you guys discontinued that you don't make, but
Yeah.
I like a center zip, and I'm pretty, I know that I do.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah, if I'm not testing something else that we have going on, I'll either be using a Sky Archer or a Terminus. Yeah, I've always preferred the side zip.
gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm an archer guy too, which is funny because it's a great bag. Not our best seller, but I think it's awesome. Like really popular. And then I like a 7900. Like I don't know. Sometimes you just want to go for the space, man. The great thing about the way Kurt designs the bags, like you're not really jumping up a lot in ounces to have that bigger bag. And so oftentimes if somebody's on the fence, 59, 69, hey man, go for the 79 because you can't go wrong. Be mindful, right? Like don't overpack it now that you have this extra space, but sometimes that extra space is nice.
You noted size for the type of hunt that somebody's doing. Do you have kind of a category that you could fit people in, saying like if you're day hunting or if you're doing an overnighter, you should look at this range. If you're 5 to 7 days, you should look at this range. If you're 8 days plus, look at this range.
Yeah, for sure. And I try to err on the side of a little bit more volume because I know something that would be super frustrating is make that investment and
Not be
say
able to
this
pack
doesn't
it.
this doesn't fit what I want. Especially when you're like to Lyle's point, you're only talking a few ounces in between all of those. So I think some of the best questions that you can ask people are everybody uses a different gear kit, as we know. So some of your huge volume sinks are going to be your sleeping bag and your tent. And not only which one, but how are you packing it? So if you're not using a compression bag, you're eating up a ton of volume inside. So it's well worth the $35 to get a true compression bag, to get your sleeping bag as small volume. And I prefer to use them for all of my soft gear. So my tent will go in one, and then say my puff layers will go in one. And now all of a sudden you have dropped this volume. And the other thing that it offers you is you can more efficiently use your space in how you can pack, just because you don't have these odd shapes. And so I think if you can start with that, and then, so you need to know the type of kit that they have. And if they really are minimalist, then you're going to do a 3 to 5 day and you have a good tight sleep system, then something like a Solo can work for you. But if you're carrying other things, you might want to take up to the 59, but Solo 59, those are your 3 to 5 day bags. Once you get over 5 days, you start eating up so much volume with food, you really should start taking that step into the 6,000 to 7,000 cubic inch range. And you can quantify those right in those areas pretty easy. And then, but to also ask the customer, do you have any plans of doing a 10-day trip? A year from now, are you planning to go to Canada to do something? What kinds of things do you have coming up? Because it's going to be worth your while to make that investment in this one if you think there's a potential of you going. And so those are some of the questions that I ask when they're trying to decide.
On volume.
Yeah.
I'm having a bit of an epiphany because I'm always like, I don't want to carry an extra stuff sack. You know, my sleeping bag's in my normal one. I don't normally carry it in a compression sack. And I've always thought, it's just I don't need it, and it'll just be added weight. But in reality, I'm just taking up more volume within the pack when I could take a smaller pack, which would be lighter, and it would just be more compact.
Yeah, the nice thing about compression sacks, I mean, to Kurt's point, like they do make things smaller, but they also add a lot of like just waterproof, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't have to have one with the seams taped, like just that compression of that down in that bag, like you can submerge them for quite a long time before you see any moisture. So it's in your bag, right? So it's already going to be somewhat protected, but it just adds another layer. I mean, we always joke we pack pretty well, but our bags, we're always like stuffing stuff all the time because we're taking photos of them, so they got to look as best as possible. So like at the end of the day, you'll dig your bag out and you're like, this is an absolute insane way to pack, but the pack looked great. A little bit different mentality. But if you're going to buy one bag, if you're going to have one Stone Glacier, Sky 5900 all day.
You can day hunt out of it.
Yeah.
You can do weekend or 5 days.
Run it in bivy mode without a lid, put the lid on it for a little extra space. But I mean, it's by far still our most popular best-selling pack, Sky 5900.
Yep.
Yeah, I like the beaver tail on it. Just
It's good,
folds out nice. I like the front pocket on it.
Yep. The beaver tail is awesome if you run it in bivy mode because then that top's going to be closed down, so you don't need to access that top. But 5900, hard to beat.
Yeah, I never use a top lid. I just hate top lids.
I always noticed that about you.
Yeah, I hate them. That's why I like the 7400 because
Yeah.
I can do 10 days out of it and I don't have to carry a top lid.
Yeah, you still have that bag?
Yeah, still
Yeah,
using
so
it.
you're good.
I used it this year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I just like it. I wish. I think it's a nice size, like I said, and then I just don't like top lids. It's like it's the kitchen junk drawer of backpacks. You just throw shit in it that you probably don't need, and it just gets loose.
sloppy.
Yeah.
Gets sloppy. So I just
Lid management, that's important to us. You got to manage your lid. We talk about that all the time. Yeah, just take care of your lid, man.
Yeah. You got other questions about gear or anything like that? Oh, I do. What new do you guys have? And then where do you think you're taking it?
Yeah, I'll answer a few and then Kirk can talk about some. So we have some new apparel this year. First, we have a lot of new colors to start, and we always kind of joke and not to bash our friends at Yeti, but it's kind of a Yeti year in some products and that they all got a lot of new colors. So a lot of grays, I love those guys, but just new colors. It's great. So a lot of new colors in that respect. And then some new insulation pieces. Circ-Lite vest, which is, the vest version of the jacket, is pretty hot fire right now. I mean, they're flying off the shelves. Great insulation layer. And then
use vests. Andrew talked me into a vest. He's like, I think you should be looking at a vest.
We talked about it, like a product where we're like, hey, Kurt has the ideas or whatever. The Circ vest with the hood. That was my idea.
You can take claim to that.
I can take claim to that. Yeah, and so I do. I use that one a lot. Traditionally, I'm not a huge vest guy. Like I like one, but I'm also a hood guy. Like I'm kind of a believer that everything should have a hood.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
I get made fun of all the time for that.
Right.
Everything should have a hood.
Yeah. But you can get a lot of hoods, and so we heard that. So we have a new
get
Helio pullover. So that's like our insulative mid layer that doesn't have a hood. So that's really nice, and that's like a nice everyday crossover piece too, right? Like you can wear that. You could wear it today. Like we could replace that thing with one, and you'd be good. So stuff like that. We have a new vinyl harness coming out.
Nice.
It's kind of a similar design and features, and Kurt can talk about that as of the current one. But we've added some wings on the side, so it gives it more modularity. So if you want to run Kestrel and a mag, or if you need a bottom pocket, you can integrate those now. So a lot more kind of feature-rich products in that sense. We have a new Tokeen backpack, which is a 2,800 cubic inch bag. It's a day bag. It's made out of our SG Ultra, and I always butcher this acronym. It stands for?
It's a UHMWPE.
Yeah, there you go.
So...
Yeah, I'm a marketing guy. I literally have to write that down every time. I'm like, talk about that.
WPE.
Yeah.
Ultra high molecular weight
Yeah.
is what
That's what it stands for.
stands for.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that one's popular. What else we got?
Well, we're gonna have a new lifestyle clothing
Oh yeah,
line
duh.
coming out.
That's
very
kind of big
soon.
one. Yeah, so we're working on like an everyday lifestyle line. So it's a couple collared shirts, some pants, kind of a technical pullover with a hood. So you like that? Yeah. So that's coming. We should have those in March. So we're excited about that. Like what we found is we're always hunters, right? But you're not always like in the act of hunting. And so we're like, man, we like making gear, and we feel we're pretty decent at it. And we were always wearing everybody else's stuff. We're like, we should just have our own line of this. So so it's kind of a new channel for us. So hopefully it's well received. Again, a lot of time went into design and developing the product. So they're very kind of thoughtful in their intention. So hopefully people bite off on them. But.
Where do you think we're going with Stone Glacier? What, I mean, more clothing line? Do you think you'll see yourselves going more into like tents, sleeping bags? You've already got those. I mean, do you think you'll see, stoves? Floorless?
Yeah. We haven't talked anything about stoves, but I think that there's enough space for us to look at some of the other portions of hunting while we focus very highly on the rifle hunter and high elevation. That there's lots of people that carry around bows and
On our tree stands?
yeah no
not
not a
that
tree.
far.
No, yeah no
Not
we're
that
not
crazy?
No.
no
Still
not
staying
that
in the
far.
mountain space.
Yeah, we're staying
okay.
100% in the mountain space.
Fair
but
enough.
yeah, trying to have some more products that fit that, and maybe just some of the different styles and areas of hunting where the kit that you're going to carry in the mountains in Arizona might not be the same that somebody's carrying in northern BC. So being able to make sure that we have those pieces that better align with what you're truly going to need, because maybe the rain gear that you're going to need in some of those areas is not going to be the same that you're going to need up north, and trying to fill in some of those voids, but 100% staying inside the mountain space.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
If you had one tip for somebody to make their pack more comfortable, as far as the way they load it, the way they fit it, what do you got?
The number one that I would say is your shoulder strap adjustment. That's by far, I think, the place where if somebody has issues with fit, that's where it starts.
You're talking
And-
the height of it, right?
The height of it. And normally it's because they're set too short on the frame. So when you're setting the length of those shoulder straps, we have a change in fabric color that is supposed to land right over your collarbone. So if you don't have that set correctly, you have
I
it
didn't
set.
know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it's a guideline,
Yeah.
right? Like a starting point. So yeah, most of the time it's that transition of the X-Pack, that black fabric
Yeah.
to the Cordura, the gray, or the Ranger, whatever you have. Ideally, that's going to hit somewhere on your collarbone. Now, everybody's body's a little bit different, right? Like I'm, chubby, athletic, and string bean boy here, right? So my fit's going to be a little bit different than Kurt's, and like I like to run my shoulder straps. I run them a little bit longer, and I actually run a pair of our long shoulder straps just because I'm pretty barrel chested. And what I find is sometimes, that pressure of like not having those set correctly can be uncomfortable. So I run mine a little longer because I like them to hit me a little bit further
I
back
like
in the
that
body.
too. I hate when mine
Yeah.
hit high.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
that's just an adjustment thing, right?
Yeah.
And it really helps pull that load like up on your shoulders, right? The biggest thing I always see is just how you actually address and put on a backpack. So a lot of guys put it on and like they pull their shoulder straps first, or like they do their chest straps first. Like put it on, like, have all your straps relatively loose. Put it on, do your waist belt first, get that comfortable, shoulder strap, and then chest strap. And like sometimes just that simple process of like getting that weight on your hips first and making sure that's correct will really help you like dial in your shoulder straps. But yeah, sometimes guys, it's like, man, have you ever gotten dressed in the morning? Like you don't put both legs in one pant, right? Like it's
true.
There's a process for that, and I think that really helps. And then the other one we see too is load lifters. You just want those guys, like in general, when you're hiking around, like just make them tight. Like they don't need to be over tightened. You see a lot of guys that over tighten them. When it does, it actually pulls your shoulder strap up. So rather than like curving over your shoulder, it makes it up, and so now you have this void right here, right? That's going to put a lot of pressure on the front of your shoulders and on the back of your shoulders and add a lot of fatigue. You want that shoulder strap to just perfectly curve up and over, full contact the entire time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How often do you refit yours?
Oh, dude, I don't know about Kurt. Me, like, I might refit mine a couple times during a hunt.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Depending on, like, like you hike into a spot, you dump all your camp stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now my backpack feels a little bit different. I'll make a quick adjustment that day, hike with it. Heavy load, like I might adjust mine once or twice on a heavy load to kind of reposition things on my body. You know,
And early to late season. Because you go out and you're just wearing base layers, there's a lot less volume, and it just seems to ride different, and so lengthen everything out a little bit once you get under 3 layers. Or yeah.
I haven't adjusted mine in ages.
No,
I'm not the type of person that does either.
that's right.
I got it dialed, and I think it works. It feels like it works.
Yeah, it is interesting. So it is like if you say you make the joke like if you got dressed in the morning, but I mean if you get set in the habit of doing it one way and just keep doing it the same way, like you may not know the difference of what it could make if you did it differently.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a level of comfort, right? Like that's what you're trying to find. Like
Yeah.
we get guys that, again, like the shoulder strap thing. It's a guide point, but man, if you put it on and you wear them weird, but you think it's comfortable, then that's kind of half the battle. Like maybe it's not our intention, but it's all about comfort, and everybody's going to be different. So we try to give people guidelines of like best practices, but at the end of the day, do what's comfortable for you.
I didn't know that about the color change.
I didn't know that either.
Now I got to try that when I get home. I have mine in my garage, and I've got 50 pounds of gravel in a bag loaded up on the load shelf, and then I'll jump on the treadmill and do some miles with it. So
That's perfect. That's the only thing we tell people: don't put weights on your frame. It's hard on them.
But to that point,
But bags of sand.
yeah, bags of sand, salt,
Wood pellets for your stoves. Those are
any
great.
of that type of thing. But that is one of the things, and we've tried to communicate too, is that you can train all year and get your body in shape, but there is just something different about getting under the load of a backpack. And if you climb under it, no matter what type of shape, for the first time when you go in, it's almost guaranteed your hips, shoulders, traps, lats, like everything's going to be sore just because you use so much of your core to support that. So I still think one of the biggest things that we could do to increase the comfort is spend more time doing it. It's just like if you work out in the weight room and you wait until one day to do squats, and you're only going to do squats for 3 months, and you're going to go out and try to do the best you can with squats on the first day, it'd be miserable.
yeah.
And it's no different with the backpack.
A few years ago, I wasn't rucking or anything. I was just mostly running. I would run every day, trail run every day, trail run, and I was doing fine. I had a great hunting season. I think maybe the year after, I started 3 days a week. I wouldn't run. I'd skip my run just because I got bored running the same trails, and I would throw, the ruck on, and I would do that. And I ran a trail half, I remember. And I remember I'd run the same race before, and it was hard. And I thought, I might suffer because I hadn't been running nearly as much. I'd just been rucking. And I ran so much better. I ran so much stronger. It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, in theory, I thought I would do worse because I hadn't been running, But just like those 3 days of rucking, I don't know what it was, but my body felt I felt so much better. So that's kind of been what I've been doing. I mean, I'm sure you know. He's like, you're a moron.
There's no replacement for resistance training.
Yeah.
You can run and do
I
all that
just-
shit all you want. There's no replacement for resistance training.
Yeah, I always tell
Weight-based
people,
training.
if you're gonna do one thing, just put your backpack on and go outside.
No
Walk around
one-
your neighborhood. It doesn't really matter. Like if you have elevation, do the elevation. But
Underweight. That's
Yeah.
all.
Underweight.
Just get underweight. Get your body used to being
100%.
underweight in any way possible.
Yeah. And then you can just vary the weight based on the time you have.
Yeah.
If I only have 20 minutes to go, put 90 pounds on and go for 20 minutes. It makes a huge difference if that's what you're going to do.
Is that what you do mostly? I'm curious. Now I'm curious. Do you run? Do you rock? What do you do?
I try to do it all because I get bored otherwise. But my wife, Nicole, loves to walk and hike. So I say, okay, where are we going? She'll tell me, and then I'll try to make a gauge of the most amount of weight I can carry and keep up with her, whatever it is. If it's a walk around the neighborhood after dinner. And
Gotcha.
yeah.
That's good. I appreciate it. We've kept you for over limit. Sorry.
No, we're good.
We're not very good at that. You guys, other questions? Anything else, Brady?
No, I wanted to get into some sheep stories. Both these guys have been killing some sheep.
How many
but-
sheep have you killed, Kurt? How many dolls when you lived up there?
6.
6 dolls.
Yeah.
In how many years?
Oh, I was up there for 13.
Pretty good.
Dang.
It's a good percentage.
What's your biggest one?
I shot one that was 44 and 3/8.
How big is that?
That'll do.
Is that big?
It's long.
It's long.
Yeah.
Where does that rank as far as
I mean, I don't.
how many?
It's
I wouldn't be the one to know, but like all I know is over 40 is like a massive accomplishment, and that's wildly over.
yeah, but it's just like bighorns or anything else. You could shoot a short ram that has 17-inch bases,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden your score goes up. So it didn't have giant bases, and but it was
Looks
with
cool.
a yeah, he looks cool. He was with a ram that I think would have scored better, but it's just hard to pass up on something unique.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Man,
That's big.
that's wild. Do you have one that was like most memorable?
Oh, I don't know. That's pretty hard. That one was pretty memorable, just because you never really you go out in hopes of being able to find something that you might not find again.
Yeah.
And pretty confident that was probably the time. So yeah, that one was pretty cool.
Someday, huh?
Someday.
44.
Someday.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank
We'll run you over and let you guys do some customer service stuff.
Work.
I might even go watch that too.
Yeah, I might too.
Get some more tips.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.